Billionaire Mafia Boss was taking his fiancée home until he saw his ex crossing the road with twins. The rain hammered against the windshield as Kim Jae-ho's hands gripped the steering wheel, his knuckles white, his breath coming in sharp gasps. Blood dripped from a cut above his eyebrow, mixing with the rain that had soaked through his shirt. In the passenger seat, two small boys huddled together, their identical faces streaked with tears and dirt. Behind them, the headlights of three black SUVs cut through the darkness, gaining ground with every second. Jae-ho's phone buzzed violently on the dashboard. He didn't need to look to know who was calling. His past had finally caught up with him, and this time, it wasn't just his life on the line. It was theirs, the twins, his sons, the children he didn't even know existed until 3 weeks ago. And if he didn't make it through this night, they would never know that their father died trying to save them. But let's rewind. Let's go back to the moment everything changed. The moment that split Kim Jae-ho's life into before and after. Before we begin, drop a comment and let us know where you are watching from. We would love to hear from you. 3 weeks earlier, Seoul was draped in the soft glow of early autumn. The city lights reflected off the Han River as Jae-ho drove through the upscale Gangnam district, his fiancée Minji sitting beside him, humming softly to a song on the radio. She looked radiant in her cream-colored dress, her hair falling in gentle waves over her shoulders. They had just left his mother's house after a family dinner where wedding dates and honeymoon destinations have been discussed with the kind of casual certainty that comes from a life carefully planned and perfectly executed. Your mother wants us to consider Jeju Island for the ceremony, Minji said, turning to him with a warm smile. She thinks the beach would be romantic. Jae-ho nodded, though his mind was elsewhere. It usually was these days. 5 years ago, he had been a different man, a dangerous man, the kind of man who made problems disappear with a phone call and a wire transfer. The kind of man who attended meetings where more blood was spilled than wine. But Minji had changed him. She was a pediatric nurse, someone who spent her days healing children, someone whose hands knew only gentleness. When she entered his life 2 years ago, she brought light into spaces he thought would remain forever dark. Jeju sounds perfect, he replied, reaching over to squeeze her hand. The traffic light ahead turned red, and Jae-ho eased the Mercedes to a stop at a pedestrian crossing in Itaewon. It was a busy intersection, the kind where dozens of people crossed at once, a river of humanity flowing between the buildings. Minji was still talking about floral arrangements when Jae-ho's entire world stopped. There, in the middle of the crosswalk, illuminated by his headlights like an apparition, was a woman he thought he would never see again. Josephine. His Josephine. She was wearing a simple jacket and jeans, her natural hair pulled back, and on either side of her, holding her hands, were two small boys. They couldn't have been more than 6 years old. Identical twins with caramel skin, dark curly hair, and faces that made Jae-ho's breath catch in his throat because he knew those faces. He had seen them every day in the mirror for 34 years. The world around him dissolved into white noise. Minji's voice became a distant echo. The car behind him honked, but he couldn't move, couldn't breathe, couldn't think. Josephine hadn't seen him yet. She was focused on the boys, making sure they stayed close as they crossed. But then, as if pulled by an invisible thread, she looked up. Her eyes met his through the windshield, and Jae-ho watched as the color drained from her face. For 3 seconds that felt like 3 hours, they stared at each other across the distance of 7 years and 1,000 unsaid words. Then she grabbed the boy's hands tighter and hurried across the street, disappearing into the crowd on the other side. Jae-ho, the light is green. Minji's voice cut through his paralysis. He blinked, his hands trembling on the steering wheel. His heart was pounding so hard, he was certain Minji could hear it. Jae-ho, are you okay? You look like you've seen a ghost. He forced himself to press the accelerator, the car jerking forward. I'm fine, he managed to say, but his voice sounded strangled even to his own ears. Minji wasn't convinced. She studied his profile, then turned to look behind them, trying to see what had stolen his attention. Do you know someone back there? No, he lied, and the word tasted like ash in his mouth. If you're watching this, please take a moment to like this video and subscribe to our channel. This story is just beginning, and trust me, you won't want to miss what happens next. They drove in silence for the next 10 minutes. Jaeho's mind was racing, his hands still shaking. Josephine, after all these years, and those boys who looked exactly like him. It wasn't possible. It couldn't be possible. But even as he tried to convince himself otherwise, he knew the truth with a certainty that made him feel like he was drowning. When they arrived at Minji's apartment in Songdong, she didn't immediately get out of the car. Instead, she turned to him, her expression a mixture of concern and something else. Something that looked like fear. Jaeho, please talk to me. What happened back there? He couldn't meet her eyes. Nothing happened. I thought I saw someone I used to know. It was nothing. You whispered a name, Minji said quietly. You said Josephine. Jaeho's stomach dropped. He hadn't even realized he'd spoken out loud. Minji reached for his hand, but he pulled away instinctively, and he saw the hurt flash across her face. I'm sorry, he said quickly. I just need some time to think. Time to think about what? About someone from your past. Her voice wavered. Jaeho, we're getting married in 4 months. If there's something I need to know. There's nothing, he insisted, but they both knew it was a lie. Minji opened the car door, pausing before she stepped out. I've never asked about your past, because I believed you when you said you'd left it behind. But whoever that woman is, whoever she was to you, the look on your face tells me everything. You're not over her. Minji. She held up a hand. I'm not angry, Jaeho. I am scared. Because I love you, and I thought you loved me too. But I can't compete with a ghost. She got out of the car and closed the door gently, which somehow hurt more than if she had slammed it. Jaeho sat in the car for a long time after Minji went inside, his head resting against the steering wheel. Josephine. God, Josephine. 7 years had passed since the night she disappeared from his life, leaving only a note that said she couldn't live in his world anymore. He had searched for her for months, using every resource at his disposal, but it was as if she had vanished from the face of the earth. Eventually, he had forced himself to move on, to bury the pain deep enough that it only surfaced in nightmares. But those boys, those twins, they couldn't be older than 6, which meant. Jaeho pulled out his phone with shaking hands and dialed a number he hadn't called in over a year. It rang 3 times before a gruff voice answered. Well, Kim Jaeho. I thought you'd gone soft and forgotten about old friends. Han-soo, I need your help, Jaeho said, skipping any pleasantries. I need you to find someone. There was a pause. I thought you were out of the game. I am. This is personal. Personal usually means expensive. I don't care about the cost. I need everything you can find on a woman named Josephine Okonkwo. South African. She would have been living in Seoul 7 years ago, then disappeared. I need to know where she is now, what she's doing, everything. How fast do you need this? Yesterday. Han-soo huklid. It'll take me a day or 2. I'll call you when I have something. Jaeho ended the call and stared at the phone in his hand. What was he doing? Minji was right to be scared. He should go upstairs right now, apologize, and forget he ever saw Josephine. He should focus on the life he was building, the clean life, the safe life. But those boys, he couldn't unsee their faces, couldn't unknow what his gut was screaming at him. He drove home to his penthouse in Hanamdong, the luxury building a symbol of the legitimate business empire he had built after leaving the underworld. His apartment was immaculate, all clean lines and expensive furniture, but it felt empty. It always felt empty. That night, he didn't sleep. He lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, memories flooding back with painful clarity. Josephine had walked into his life during the darkest period, when he was deep in the organization, when violence was as routine as breathing. She had been working at a small cafe in Itaewon, and he had stopped in one afternoon to meet an associate. She had served him coffee with a smile that seemed too bright for the gray world he inhabited. He had gone back the next day, and the day after that. Not for the coffee. Their relationship had been a secret at first. She didn't know what he did, and he liked it that way. With her, he could pretend to be normal. With her, he could laugh at silly jokes and talk about movies and forget that he had blood on his hands. But secrets in his world never stayed buried. The day she found out who he really was, what he really did, everything changed. He remembered the look on her face when she walked in on a meeting at his apartment, when she saw the guns on the table and the fear in the eyes of the man kneeling on the floor. He remembered how she had backed away from him like he was a monster. Because he was a monster. At least he had been. She had given him an ultimatum: leave that life or lose her. And he had been too proud, too entrenched, too stupid to choose her. So she chose for both of them. Before you find out what happens next, do me a favor. Hit that like button if you're already hooked, and drop a comment telling me if you think Jae-ho deserved a second chance. Trust me, things are about to get even crazier. Now, lying in his bed 7 years later, Jae-ho realized that every decision he had made since she left had been an attempt to become the man she had wanted him to be. He had left the organization. He had built legitimate businesses. He had tried to be good, but he had done it all when it was too late, when she was already gone. And if those boys were his sons, then she had been raising them alone all this time. While he lived in a penthouse, while he drove luxury cars, while he planned a wedding to another woman. The guilt was suffocating. His phone rang at 6 in the morning. "Hansu." "That was fast," Jae-ho said, sitting up immediately. "I'm good at my job. Also, she's not hiding. She's living in Yongsan under her real name. Works 2 jobs, one in an international school as a teaching assistant, another at a translation company. Lives in a small apartment with twin sons, aged 6. Their names are Samuel and Gabriel Okonkwo. No father listed on the birth certificates." Jae-ho closed his eyes, the confirmation hitting him like a physical blow. "Send me the address." "Jae-ho, I have to ask, are you sure you want to do this? You build a good life. Sometimes the past should stay in the past. Send me the address, Hansu. It's already in your email. But be careful. You're not the only one who might be interested in your past catching up with you." The line went dead, and Jae-ho sat there, his heart pounding. He knew what Hansu meant. There were people from his old life who would love nothing more than to find a weakness in his armor. And children, his children, would be the ultimate leverage. He spent the morning pacing his apartment, arguing with himself. He should tell Min-ji. He should be honest. But honest about what? That he might have children with another woman? That the life he promised was built on lies and half-truths? That he had no idea who he really was anymore? By noon, he had made a decision. He had to see Josephine. He had to know the truth, hear it from her own mouth. Then he would figure out the rest. The address led him to a modest apartment building in Yongsan, the kind of place where working families lived, where children played in small courtyards and laundry hung from tiny balconies. It was so far removed from his world that it felt like a different universe. He sat in his car across the street, watching the building, feeling like a creep but unable to leave. At 3:30, he saw them. Josephine emerged from the building with the twins, both boys wearing backpacks and chattering excitedly. She looked tired, older than he remembered, but still beautiful in a way that made his chest ache. She was laughing at something one of the boys said, ruffling his hair with an affection that was so natural, so easy. Jae-ho got out of the car before he could stop himself. "Josephine." She froze mid-step, her hand instinctively pulling the boys closer. When she turned to face him, her expression was a mixture of shock, fear, and something that might have been anger. "What are you doing here?" Her voice was low, controlled, but he could hear the tremor beneath it. The boys stared up at him with curious eyes, and Jae-ho felt his throat close. Up close, the resemblance was undeniable. They had his nose, his jawline, his eyes. "We need to talk," he managed to say. "No, we don't." Josephine started walking, pulling the boys with her. Jae-ho followed. "Josephine, please. Just 5 minutes." "Go away, Jae-ho. Are they mine?" The question burst out of him, desperate and raw. Josephine stopped walking. The boys looked up at their mother, confused. She closed her eyes briefly, and when she opened them, they were filled with tears. "Samuel, Gabriel, go wait for me by that bench over there," she said gently, pointing to a spot 20 feet away. "I'll be right there." The boys hesitated, but they obeyed, casting curious glances back at Jae-ho as they walked away. Once they were out of earshot, Josephine turned to face him fully. How did you find me? Does it matter? Yes, it matters. I've spent 7 years making sure you couldn't find us. Us, Jeho repeated, his voice breaking. So they're mine. Josephine's jaw tightened, and for a moment, she looked like she might deny it. But then her shoulders sagged, and she nodded. Yes, they're yours. The world tilted. Even though he had known, hearing her confirm it made it real in a way that observation couldn't. Jeho stumbled backward, leaning against a nearby wall for support. Why? He whispered. Why didn't you tell me? Tell you? Josephine's voice rose, then immediately dropped as she glanced at the boys. Tell you what, Jeho? That I was pregnant? So you could what? Bring them into your world. Have them grow up around guns and violence and blood? Watch their father torture people in the living room. That's not fair. Not fair. Her laugh was bitter. I found out I was pregnant 2 weeks after I left you. 2 weeks after I'd finally gotten away from that nightmare. And you want to talk about fair? Jeho felt like he'd been punched in the gut. I would have changed. I would have left that life for them. But you wouldn't leave it for me, Josephine said quietly, and those 7 words contained more pain than any scream could have. The silence between them was heavy, filled with 7 years of hurt and anger and love that had nowhere to go. Jeho looked over at the boys, who were sitting on the bench, swinging their legs and whispering to each other. His sons. He had sons. I did leave, he said finally. That life. I left it 3 years ago. I'm clean now. Legitimate businesses. No ties to the organization. Josephine studied his face, searching for the lie, but she must have seen the truth because her expression softened slightly. Good for you. But that doesn't change anything. How can you say that? They're my children. They're my children. Josephine interrupted, her voice fierce. I'm the one who held them when they were sick. I'm the one who worked 3 jobs to put food on the table. I'm the one who stayed up all night when they had nightmares. You don't get to walk in here after 7 years and claim them just because you shared DNA. Every word was a knife, and Jeho knew he deserved every cut. You're right. You're absolutely right. But Josephine, please, I just want to know them. I want to be part of their lives. No, Josephine. No, Jael. Do you understand what your world did to me? I still have nightmares about the things I saw. About the men who threatened me to get to you. About the time someone followed me home and I had to hide in a convenience store for 3 hours. I built a new life, a safe life, and I won't let you destroy it. I'm not that person anymore, Jeho said desperately. I swear to you I'm different. I'm engaged. I'm getting married. I have a normal life now. Something flickered across Josephine's face at the mention of his engagement, but it was gone before he could identify it. Then go live your normal life and leave us alone. I can't, he said simply. Now that I know they exist, I can't just walk away. You don't have a choice. Don't I? What if I tell them the truth? What if I introduce myself as their father? It was a low blow, and he regretted it the moment he saw the fear in her eyes. You wouldn't, she breathed. Jeho ran his hands through his hair, frustrated with himself. No, I wouldn't. I'm sorry. God, Josephine, you have to understand. I didn't know. If I had known you were pregnant, everything would have been different. But that's the point, Jeho. You can't rewrite history. You can't undo the past 7 years. And I won't risk their safety, not even for you. One of the boys, Samuel or Gabriel, Jeho didn't know which, called out. Yama, can we go now? We're hungry. Josephine glanced at her watch and cursed softly. I have to get to my second job. They need to eat first. Let me help, Jeho said quickly. Let me take you all to dinner. Please. Just one meal. Just so I can. I don't know. Just one meal. Jeho, please. He hated how desperate he sounded, but pride seemed insignificant compared to the possibility of spending even an hour with his children. Josephine looked at him for a long moment, and he could see the war playing out behind her eyes. Finally, she sighed. One meal. That's it. And you don't tell them who you are. As far as they know, you're an old friend. Thank you, Jeho breathed. They walked to a small restaurant nearby, the boys chattering excitedly about their day at school. Jeho learned that the one with a small scar on his chin was Samuel, and the one with a more serious expression was Gabriel. They were both smart, funny, and completely unaware that the man buying them dinner was their father. "So you're Yama's friend?" Samuel asked, dipping a piece of bulgogi in sauce with the focused concentration only a 6-year-old could muster. "We knew each other a long time ago," Jeho replied carefully. "Were you boyfriend and girlfriend?" Gabriel asked with the bluntness of childhood. Josephine choked on her water, and Jeho felt his face heat up. "We were friends," he said. "That's not an answer," Samuel pointed out, and Jeho realized with a jolt that his son had inherited his tendency to read between the lines. "Eat your food," Josephine interjected, shooting Jeho a warning look. The meal was simultaneously wonderful and torturous. Wonderful because his sons were incredible, bright and curious, and full of life. Torturous because every minute reminded him of what he had missed. First steps, first words, first days of school, birthday parties, skinned knees, bedtime stories, 7 years of moments he could never get back. At one point, Gabriel reached for the last piece of kimchi at the same time Jeho did, and their hands touched. The boy looked up at him and grinned. "You can have it, Ajusi. Iyama says sharing is caring." Jeho's eyes burned with unexpected tears, and he had to look away quickly. "You have it. Your Iyama's right about sharing." When the meal was over and Josephine said it was time to go, both boys groaned in disappointment. "Can Ajusi come with us?" Samuel asked. "He's funny." "Yeah, and he's got a cool car," Gabriel added, having spotted the Mercedes from the restaurant window. "Maybe another time," Josephine said firmly, ushering them toward the door. Outside, as the boys ran ahead slightly, Josephine turned to Jeho. "This can't happen again." "Why not? They like me. I didn't tell them anything. What's the harm in?" "The harm," Josephine interrupted, her voice tight, "is that they'll get attached. And when you disappear back into your fancy life with your fiancé in your penthouse, they'll be the ones who get hurt. I won't do that to them. I won't disappear. Everyone disappears eventually, Jeho. I learned that from you." She walked away before he could respond, gathering the boys and heading toward the subway station. Jeho stood there, watching them go, feeling more helpless than he had in years. He drove home in a daze. His phone buzzed multiple times. Minji calling, probably wanted to talk about their fight from the night before. He couldn't face her. Not yet. Not with his head full of Josephine and his heart full of 2 little boys who didn't know he was their father. When he finally made it back to his apartment, he poured himself a drink and stood at the floor-to-ceiling windows, staring out at the Seoul skyline. His phone buzzed again. This time it was a text from Minji. "We need to talk. I'm coming over." She arrived 20 minutes later, still in her nurse's scrubs from the hospital. Her face was tired but determined. "Who is she?" Minji asked the moment he let her in. Jeho couldn't lie anymore. He was so tired of lying. "Someone I loved a long time ago. Someone I thought was gone from my life, forever. And now she's back. It's complicated, then uncomplicated for me, Jeho, because I deserve to know what I'm dealing with." So he told her everything. About Josephine, about his past, about the twins. He watched Minji's face go through a series of expressions: shock, hurt, anger, sadness. When he finished, she sat down heavily on his couch, her hands shaking. "You have children," she said, as if testing the words, "with another woman, and you just found out yesterday. I know how this sounds. Do you?" Minji looked up at him, her eyes wet. "We were supposed to get married, Jeho. We were supposed to build a life together. And now there are 2 little boys who need their father. Where does that leave me?" "I don't know," he admitted. "I don't know what to do." Minji laughed, but there was no humor in it. "At least you're honest about that." She stood up, wiping her eyes. "I need some time to think." "We both do. But Jeho, if you're going to be their father, and I think you should be, then you need to be all in. You can't be half a father any more than you can be half a husband." Hey, quick question for you amazing viewers. Do you think Minji should stay and fight for her relationship or step aside? Drop your thoughts in the comments. And don't forget to subscribe because this story is about to take a turn you won't see coming. After Minji left, Jeho couldn't sleep again. He sat at his computer, creating a file. Background checks on Josephine's neighborhood. Security concerns. Potential threats from his old life. If he was going to be part of his son's lives, and he was No matter what Josephine said, he needed to make sure they were safe. It was 3 in the morning when he noticed it. A name in one of the background reports that made his blood run cold. Park Dong-woo, one of his old enemies, someone he had crossed badly before leaving the organization. And according to the report, Dong-woo had been seen in Yongsan recently, near Josephine's building. It could be a coincidence. Seoul was a big city, and Yongsan was a normal neighborhood. But Jae-ho hadn't survived his old life by believing in coincidences. He called Han-soo again, not caring about the hour. I need surveillance on an address in Yongsan. Discreet but thorough. And I need you to find out what Park Dong-woo has been doing for the last 6 months. This is about the woman and the kids. Yes, Jae-ho, if Dong-woo knows about them. That's why I need you to find out. If he knows, I need to move them somewhere safe. And if you move them, he'll know they matter to you. You'll confirm what he might only suspect right now. Jae-ho closed his eyes. Han-soo was right. This was the catch, 22 of his former life. Protecting the people you loved often meant putting them in more danger. Just give me the information. I'll figure out the rest. The next morning, Jae-ho did something he hadn't done in years. He went to see his old mentor, the man who had first brought him into the organization. Choi Jin-ho lived in a traditional hanok in Bukshin, his retirement funded by decades of less-than-legal activities. He was in his 70s now, but his eyes were still sharp when he opened the door. Kim Jae-ho, Jin-ho said, a smile playing at his lips. I heard you gone soft. Fell in love with a nice girl, started playing businessman. What brings you back to the wolves? I need advice. Jin-ho gestured him inside, where they sat in a room filled with expensive art, most of it probably stolen. Advice is free. Protection costs money. Which one do you need? Both, probably, Jae-ho admitted. He explained the situation, leaving nothing out. Jin-ho listened without interrupting, occasionally sipping his tea. When Jae-ho finished, Jin-ho was quiet for a long moment. You always were the sentimental type. It's what made you dangerous. You cared too much, felt too deeply. Men like us aren't supposed to have families. We're supposed to be islands. I don't want to be an island anymore. No, you want to be a father. Noble. Stupid, but noble. Jin-ho set down his teacup with a soft click. If Dong-woo knows about the children, he'll use them. That's what I would do. That's what you would have done, once upon a time. The words stung because they were true. So what do? You have 3 options. 1. Disappear the children. New identities, new country, new life. You'd never see them again, but they'd be safe. 2. Eliminate the threat. Dong-woo and anyone else who might use them against you. Return to the life you left and finish what you started. 3. Bring them into the fold. Let everyone know they're yours. Claim them publicly and dare anyone to touch them. Make it clear that hurting them means war. Jae-ho felt sick. Those are terrible options. Welcome back to the life you thought you left behind. The thing about our world, Jae-ho, is that you're never really out. You just get longer leashes. Jin-ho leaned forward. My advice? Choose option 3. Make them legitimate. Let the world see them as Kim Jae-ho's sons. It's dangerous, but it's less dangerous than hiding them. Hidden things get found. Protected things get avoided. Josephine will never agree to that. Then you'll have to convince her that the alternative is worse. Jin-ho stood, signaling the meeting was over. And Jae-ho, that fiancée of yours, the nurse. If you're smart, you'll let her go. Women like that don't survive in our world. They're too good, too pure. They end up broken. Jae-ho left Jin-ho's house with more questions than answers. His phone buzzed with a message from Han-soo. Call me. It's urgent. He dialed immediately. What did you find? Dong-woo knows. I don't know how, but he knows about the kids. He's been asking questions, showing pictures around Yongsan. He's building a case, figuring out their routine. Jae-ho's stomach dropped. How long do we have? If he's smart, he'll wait until he has everything planned perfectly. If he's desperate, could be any day now. What do you want me to do? Get a team together. People I can trust. I need them watching that apartment 24/7. And Han-soo, nobody touches those kids. I don't care what it costs or what it takes. Understood. But Jae-ho, you need to tell the woman. She needs to know what's coming. The line went dead, and Jae-ho stood in the middle of the street, paralyzed by fear he hadn't felt in years. When he had been in the organization, he had been fearless because he had nothing to lose. Now, he had everything to lose, and the terror was overwhelming. He drove to the international school where Josephine worked, waiting outside until her shift ended. When she emerged and saw him leaning against his car, her face hardened. "I told you, they're in danger," Jeho interrupted. "My old enemies know about them. They're planning something." The color drained from Josephine's face. No, this is exactly what I was afraid of. This is why I left, why I hid. I know, and I'm sorry. But we don't have time for blame right now. We need to move you somewhere safe. All three of you. Move us where? And for how long? The rest of our lives. Josephine's voice was rising, panic bleeding through. "I have a job, Jeho. The boys have school. We have a life here. A life you'll lose if Park Dong-woo gets to them first," Jeho said bluntly. "He's a monster, Josephine. He'll take them just to hurt me, and he won't care what happens to them in the process." Josephine stumbled backward, and Jeho reached out to steady her. She let him, which was how he knew she was truly scared. "This is my fault," she whispered. "I should have moved farther away. I should have changed our names. This isn't your fault. It's mine. All of it. But right now, we need to focus on keeping them safe." He looked into her eyes, trying to convey the urgency. "Please, Josephine, trust me one more time. Let me protect you." She searched his face, and whatever she saw there must have convinced her because she nodded shakily. "What do we do?" "Pack only what you absolutely need. I'll have people move the rest later. We're leaving tonight." "Where are we going?" "My family has a house in Busan. It's secure, private. No one from my old life knows about it because I bought it after I left the organization." "And then what?" "We just hide forever." Jeho wished he had a better answer. "And then I fix this. Permanently." That evening, Jeho stood in Josephine's small apartment, watching her pack with practiced efficiency. The twins were confused, asking questions that neither adult knew how to answer properly. "Why do we have to go on a trip so suddenly?" Samuel asked, clutching his favorite stuffed animal, a tiger that had seen better days. "Because Juicy invited us to see the ocean," Josephine said, forcing brightness into her voice. "Won't that be fun? But what about school?" Gabriel, ever the practical one, frowned at his mother. "Teacher said we have a test on Friday. You can take it when we get back," Josephine assured him, though her hands trembled as she folded their clothes. Jeho's phone buzzed. A message from Hansu. "Two suspicious vehicles spotted near the building. We're watching them. Move fast. We need to go. Now," Jeho said quietly to Josephine. She nodded, zipping up the last bag. "Boys, grab your backpacks. We're going on an adventure." They made their way down the back stairwell of the apartment building, Jeho carrying most of the bags while keeping one hand free, old habits from his dangerous days. His car was parked in a different location than usual, a precaution that now seemed prescient. He loaded everyone in quickly, his eyes constantly scanning the street. As they pulled away, Jeho noticed a black sedan parked 3 cars down. The driver's face was obscured, but the posture was all wrong. Too alert, too focused. Not a resident. Not a civilian. "Duck down," Jeho said calmly. "Boys, make it a game. See who can stay down the longest." The twins thought it was hilarious, scrunching down in their seats and giggling. Josephine, however, understood immediately. She twisted in her seat, looking behind them. "Is someone following us?" "Possibly. Hold on." Jeho had driven these streets for years, both as a hunter and as prey. He knew every alley, every shortcut, every place where surveillance cameras had blind spots. He took a series of turns that seemed random but were carefully calculated, watching his rearview mirror the entire time. The black sedan followed for 3 turns, then fell back. Either they'd lost them, or the tail was being more careful. 20 minutes later, satisfied they weren't being followed, Jeho finally relaxed slightly. The boys had given up their game and were now arguing about whether dolphins or sharks were cooler. Normal kid stuff. It made his heart ache. "Can we stop for food?" Samuel asked. "I am starving. Growing boys need nutrition. That's what Teacher Park says." Despite the tension, Jeho found himself smiling. "Growing boys need nutrition? You sound like a little professor." "He wants to be a doctor," Josephine said softly, and there was pride in her voice. Gabriel wants to be a chef. He's always cooking with me. What about you, Ajusi? Gabriel asked. What's your job? Jeho hesitated. What was he supposed to say? I run some businesses. Import and export, mostly. That sounds boring, Samuel announced with the brutal honesty of childhood. Samuel, Josephine scolded, but Jeho laughed, really laughed, for the first time in days. You're right. It is pretty boring, he admitted. But it pays the bills. They stop at a rest area along the highway, and Jeho bought enough food to feed a small army. While the boys demolished chicken and rice, Josephine pulled him aside. How long is this going to last? She asked quietly. This running, this hiding. I can't raise them like this, Jeho. They need stability. They need normalcy. I know, and I promise you I'm going to fix this. But I need you to trust me. Trust, Josephine repeated, as if the word was foreign. That's a big ask from someone who... She stopped herself, glancing at the boys. From someone I haven't seen in 7 years. I know I don't deserve it, but they do. They deserve a father who keeps them safe. Something in Josephine's expression softened. Is that what you want to be? Their father? Not just biologically, but really their father? More than anything, Jeho said, and he meant it with every fiber of his being. Even if it means giving up your life and soul, your fiancé, your perfect, clean existence. It was never perfect, and it was never really clean. I was just better at hiding the stains. He looked at the boys, who were now having a mock sword fight with their chopsticks. I've spent 3 years trying to become a better man. Maybe this is why. Maybe everything I did was preparing me for this moment. Josephine studied him for a long time. You've changed, she finally said. The old Jeho never would have admitted vulnerability, never would have asked for trust instead of demanding it. The old Jeho was an idiot who lost the best thing that ever happened to him. Don't, Josephine said, but her voice was gentle. Don't do that. Don't romanticize what we had. It was toxic and dangerous and real, Jeho finished. It was real, Josephine. Maybe it was toxic, maybe it was dangerous, but what I felt for you is the most real thing in my life. She looked away, blinking rapidly. We should get back on the road. Stay with me through the end of this journey. And if this story speaks to you, subscribe so you never miss the next one. They arrived in Busan near midnight. The house was modern and secure, perched on a cliff overlooking the ocean. Jeho had bought it 2 years ago as an escape, a place where he could think without the noise of Seoul. Now it would serve a different purpose. The boys were asleep in the car, and Jeho carried them inside one by one, Josephine directing him to the bedrooms. It felt surreally domestic, like they were a real family arriving home from a vacation. But the 3 security guards Hansu had stationed around the property were a stark reminder that this was anything but normal. Once the boys were settled, Jeho found Josephine standing on the balcony, staring out at the dark ocean. The moonlight caught her profile, and for a moment, he was transported back 7 years to nights when they would stand together just like this, her head on his shoulder, planning futures that never came to pass. It's beautiful here, she said without turning around. It's safe. That's what matters. For how long? She finally looked at him. You keep saying you'll fix this, but how? Men like Park Dong-woo don't just go away because you ask nicely. Jeho leaned against the railing. I know, which is why I need to go back to Seoul tomorrow. There are people I need to see, arrangements I need to make. You're going to kill him, Josephine said flatly. That's your solution. Go back to being a killer. I'm going to neutralize the threat. However, that needs to happen. And if you die in the process, what happens to Samuel and Gabriel then? They finally have a father, and you're going to get yourself killed before they even know who you are? The question hit harder than any punch Jeho had ever taken. What choice do I have? If I don't eliminate the threat, they'll never be safe. Dong-woo won't stop. He'll keep coming, keep hunting, until he gets what he wants. Then we disappear, Josephine said desperately. New identities, new country, like we should have done from the beginning. And spend the rest of your lives looking over your shoulders, never knowing if today is the day he finds you. Jeho shook his head. That's not a life, Josephine. That's a prison. She turned away from him, wrapping her arms around herself. I hate this. I hate that you brought this back into my life. We were fine. We were safe and happy and fine. Were you? The question came out more sharply than he intended. Because from what I've seen, you're working 2 jobs and barely making rent. You're exhausted all the time. The boys need new clothes and you're wearing shoes with holes in them. That's not fine, Josephine. That's survival. She whirled on him, eyes blazing. How dare you? I'm not judging you, Jeho said quickly. God, I'm not judging you. I'm in awe of you. You raised 2 incredible kids alone while I was living in luxury. But you don't have to do it alone anymore. Even if you never want anything to do with me personally, let me support them. Let me be their father. You think throwing money at the problem makes you a father? No, but throwing money at the problem keeps them fed and clothed and in good schools. It's not everything, but it's something. He moved closer to her. I want to be there for them, Josephine. I want to teach them to ride bikes and help with homework and embarrass them at school events. I want all of it. But first, I need to make sure they survive long enough for me to be that person. Before we get to the most intense part of this story, I need you to do something for me. Smash that subscribe button, because what's about to happen will blow your mind. And drop a comment telling me, should Josephine forgive Jeho? Let's see what you think. Josephine's shoulders shook, and Jeho realized she was crying. Without thinking, he pulled her into his arms. She resisted for a moment, then collapsed against him, 7 years of exhaustion and fear and loneliness pouring out. He held her, his own tears falling into her hair, both of them finally admitting to the weight they'd been carrying alone. I'm so tired, she whispered. I'm so tired of being strong all the time. Then let me be strong for you, just for a little while. They stood like that for a long time, the ocean crashing below them, the stars wheeling overhead. When they finally pulled apart, Josephine's eyes were red but clearer somehow, as if crying had washed away some of the accumulated grief. If you die, she said, her voice steady now, I will never forgive you. Those boys need their father. So you come back, Kim Jeho. You handle whatever needs handling, and you come back. I will. I promise. Don't make promises you can't keep. I never do, he said, and he meant it. The next morning, Jeho woke to the smell of cooking and the sound of children's laughter. He found everyone in the kitchen, Josephine making pancakes while the twins sat at the counter, talking over each other in their excitement about the ocean they could see from the window. Juicy. Samuel spotted him first. Yama says we can go to the beach later. Do you want to come? Jeho's heart constricted. He wanted nothing more than to spend the day building sandcastles and teaching them to swim. But Sol was waiting, and every moment he delayed put them in more danger. I have to go back to the city for work, he said, ruffling Samuel's hair. But I'll be back soon. You promise? Gabriel asked, and the vulnerability in that question, the fear of being left behind, made Jeho want to burn the world down to keep these boys safe. I promise, he said, meeting the boy's eyes. I always keep my promises. After breakfast, as he prepared to leave, Josephine walked him to his car. There's something you should know, she said quietly. About the boys. They ask about their father sometimes. I've always told them that he was a good man who loved them, but couldn't be with us. I didn't want them to grow up thinking they weren't wanted. Jeho felt his throat close up. Thank you, he managed, for not making them hate me. I could never make them hate someone who gave them half their DNA. But Jeho, she placed a hand on his arm. When this is over, when they're safe, we're going to tell them the truth. Together. They deserve to know who their father is. Together, he agreed. The drive back to Seoul felt like traveling to another world. In Busan, he had been just Jeho, awkward and uncertain but trying. In Seoul, he would have to be Kim Jeho again, the man who people feared, the man who could make problems disappear. His first stop was to see Minji. She deserved to know what was happening, deserved a chance to walk away before things got worse. He found her at her apartment, still in her pajamas despite it being noon. Her eyes were puffy, and there were tissues scattered across her coffee table. You came back, she said, not quite a question. I need to tell you what's happening. They sat in her small living room, and Jeho explained everything. The danger, the plan, the possibility that he might not come back. Minji listened without interrupting, her hands folded in her lap. When he finished, she was quiet for a long moment. You love them, she finally said. The boys. Maybe even her. Minyi. No, it's okay. I can see in your eyes when you talk about them. It's the way I always hoped you would look when talking about our future children. She smiled sadly. But that's never going to happen, is it? You deserve better than this, Jaeho said. You deserve someone who can give you the normal life you want. Someone who isn't dragging danger into your world. You're right, I do, Minji agreed. But that doesn't make this hurt any less. She pulled off her engagement ring, holding it out to him. For what it's worth, I think you're going to be a good father. You care too much not to be. Jaeho took the ring, feeling the weight of another ending. I'm sorry. Me too. She walked him to the door, then surprised him by hugging him tightly. Be careful, Jaeho. Those boys need you. And maybe, just maybe so, does she. His next stop was less emotional and more pragmatic. He met Han-soo at a pojamika in Gangnam, the kind of street tent where drunk salarymen and dangerous men alike shared soju and secrets. Dongwoo has made his move, Han-soo said without preamble, sliding a phone across the table. He sent this message to your old number, the one you haven't used in 3 years. Jaeho looked at the screen. The message was simple but chilling. I know about your sons. Let's talk. Or don't, and see what happens. He's bluffing, Han-soo continued. He doesn't know where they are, or he wouldn't be reaching out. He's trying to force your hand. Or he's giving me a chance to negotiate before he makes a move. Since when does Park Dongwoo negotiate? Since I left the organization with information that could destroy him, Jaeho said grimly. He wants to make a deal. My silence for my son's safety. And are you going to take it? Jaeho thought about Samuel and Gabriel, about their laughter and their questions and their bright futures. He thought about Josephine, exhausted but fierce, protecting them with everything she had. He thought about the man he used to be versus the man he wanted to become. No, he said finally. I'm not negotiating with him. I'm ending this. Tonight. Han-soo whistled low. You're going to war. I'm protecting my family. If that means war, so be it. You're going to need backup. I'm going to need a lot more than that. Jaeho leaned forward, calling every favor I'm owed. Every person who ever said they'd have my back. It's time to collect. This could get messy. It's already messy. Now, it's just going to be resolved. They spent the next several hours planning. Han-soo made calls while Jaeho reviewed intelligence reports on Dongwoo's operation. Locations, schedules, weaknesses. It was like slipping on an old coat. Uncomfortable but familiar. He had sworn he would never do this again, never be this person. But protecting his sons meant becoming the monster one last time. As the sun set over Seoul, Jaeho stood on the roof of his building, looking out at the city that had been his hunting ground. His phone buzzed. A message from Josephine with a photo attached. The twins on the beach, building a sandcastle, their smiles radiant. The text read, They keep asking when you're coming back. Hurry up and finish your boring business stuff. Jaeho smiled despite everything. Then he deleted the message, removed the SIM card from his phone, and prepared for war. The meeting was set for midnight at an abandoned warehouse in Incheon, neutral territory, or as neutral as anywhere could be in their world. Jaeho arrived with Han-soo and 3 other men he trusted with his life, veterans from his old days who had followed him into retirement but were willing to return for one last job. Park Dong-woo was already there, flanked by twice as many men. He was in his 50s now, gray threading through his hair, but his eyes were still cold and calculating. He smiled when he saw Jaeho, the kind of smile a shark gives before it bites. Kim Jaeho, Dong-woo said, spreading his arms like they were old friends. I was beginning to think you'd grown too soft to show up. Let's skip the pleasantries, Jaeho replied, his voice flat. What do you want? Straight to business. I always liked that about you. Dong-woo lit a cigarette, taking his time. I want the files you took when you left. The ones that have my operations detailed down to every transaction, every contact, every body buried. You give me those, and I forget your bastard children exist. They're not bastards. They're my sons. Semantics. Dong-woo waved his cigarette dismissively. The point is, they're leverage. And I'm being generous by offering you a trade instead of just taking them. Jaeho felt rage building in his chest, hot and familiar. This was the part of himself he had tried to kill, the part that solved problems with violence. But for his sons, he would unleash it one last time. Here's my counteroffer, Jae-ho said calmly. You forget they exist, forget I exist, and in exchange, I don't release those files to every law enforcement agency in 3 countries. I don't tell your current associates about the money you've been skimming, and I don't personally make you disappear. Dong-woo's smile faded. You think you can threaten me? You're one man. I have an army. No, you have employees. I have people who are loyal because they choose to be, not because they're afraid. Jae-ho took a step forward. And you're right, I left your world. But that doesn't mean I forgot how it works. Touch my family, and I will burn your entire operation to the ground. I'll spend everyone I have, call in every favor, and dedicate every waking moment to destroying you. Is that really worth it? For the first time, uncertainty flickered across Dong-woo's face. He had expected the old Jae-ho, the one who negotiated and calculated. He hadn't expected this version, the one with something to lose and everything to fight for. You've changed, Dong-woo observed. Fatherhood makes men reckless. No, it makes them focused. Jae-ho pulled out his phone, showing a screen with multiple files ready to send. One button. That's all it takes. Every secret you've kept for 20 years goes public. Your partners, your competitors, the police. Everyone gets the full story of Park Dong-woo. How long do you think you'd survive? The warehouse was silent except for the distant sound of ships in the harbor. Dong-woo's men shifted nervously, hands moving toward weapons. Han-soo and Jae-ho's team mirrored them. The situation was a hair's breadth from becoming a bloodbath. Then Dong-woo laughed, a genuine, surprised sound. You really would do it. You'd destroy everything just to protect 2 kids you've known for less than a week. They're my sons, Jae-ho said simply. I destroy the world for them. Dong-woo studied him for a long moment, then nodded slowly. All right, I believe you. And honestly, the hassle of dealing with you isn't worth the satisfaction of revenge. Consider your family off limits. But Jae-ho, his expression hardened. This is the last favor you get. Next time someone from your past comes looking, you're on your own. There won't be a next time. I'm done with this world. We'll see, Dong-woo said cryptically. Then he gestured to his men, and they filed out of the warehouse, leaving Jae-ho and his team alone. Han-soo exhaled loudly. I can't believe that actually worked. It worked because he's rational, Jae-ho said, his hands shaking now that the adrenaline was fading. He did the math and realized I wasn't bluffing. Would you have done it? Release the files? Yes, Jae-ho said without hesitation. I would have released them and dealt with the fallout. Whatever it took. He drove back to Busan as dawn broke over Korea, the sunrise painting the highway in shades of gold and pink. He was exhausted, running on coffee and willpower, but he needed to get back to them. Needed to see with his own eyes that they were safe. He arrived at the house to find chaos of a different kind. The twins were awake and arguing loudly about whether pirates or ninjas were cooler, while Josephine tried unsuccessfully to convince them that inside voices existed for a reason. When Jae-ho walked through the door, both boys stopped mid-argument and ran to him. Ajusi, you came back. Samuel crashed into his legs with the force of a small hurricane. You missed the best sandcastle ever, Gabriel added, not wanting to be outdone. It had a moat and everything. Jae-ho crouched down to their level, pulling them both into a hug. I'm sorry I missed it, but I promise we'll build an even better one today. Over their heads, his eyes met Josephine's. She was studying his face, and he knew she could read the exhaustion there, the weight of what he'd done. But she could also see the relief, the hope. Boys, she said gently, why don't you go wash up for breakfast? Ajusi and I need to talk. They groaned but obeyed, racing each other to the bathroom. Once they were gone, Josephine approached Jae-ho slowly, like he might be a mirage. It's over, she asked. It's over. They're safe. She closed her eyes, swaying slightly. Jae-ho caught her, and for the second time in days, she let herself lean on him. Thank you, she whispered. Thank you for protecting them. I'll always protect them. It's what fathers do. Josephine pulled back to look at him. About that, I've been thinking. The boys deserve to know the truth. Not today, maybe not this week, but soon. They should know who you are. Are you sure? Once we tell them, there's no taking it back. I'm sure. Look at them, Jeho. Look at how they light up when you're around. They're already bonding with you. It would be cruel to keep the truth from them. She smiled slightly. Besides, Gabriel asked me this morning why Juicy has the same eyebrows as him. Kids notice things. Real quick, if you're loving this story, hit that like button and tell me in the comments what you think is going to happen next. Should Jeho and Josephine get back together? Let me know. And don't go anywhere because the ending is going to be absolutely perfect. They decided to tell the twins that evening. After a day of beach adventures and laughter, they set the boys down in the living room. Samuel and Gabriel looked between the two adults, sensing the seriousness. Are we in trouble? Samuel asked, his tiger clutched tight. No, sweetie, Josephine said, pulling them both close. We have something important to tell you. Something good, actually. Jeho's heart was pounding. He had faced down armed criminals without this much fear. You know how you've been asking about your father? He began, his voice rough. Both boys nodded, suddenly very still. Well, I'm your father, Jeho said. I'm your appa. The silence that followed felt eternal. Samuel looked at Gabriel. Gabriel looked at their mother. Josephine nodded, tears streaming down her face. Really? Samuel finally asked, his voice small. You're really our appa? Really, Jeho confirmed. I know this is confusing, and I know I haven't been around, but that's going to change. If you'll let me, I want to be part of your lives. I want to be your father in every way that matters. Gabriel, the serious one, studied him carefully. Why weren't you around before? It was the question Jeho had been dreading. He glanced at Josephine, who nodded encouragingly. I didn't know you existed, he said honestly. Yuriyama and we had some problems, and we stopped seeing each other before she found out she was pregnant. But now that I know about you, I promise I'm never going anywhere. I'm going to be the best appa I can be. Even better than G1's appa? Samuel asked. He can do magic tricks. Despite everything, Jeho laughed. I'll learn magic tricks. I'll learn whatever you want. Samuel thought about this for a moment, then launched himself at Jeho, wrapping small arms around his neck. Appa, he whispered, testing out the word. Gabriel was more cautious, but when Jeho held out an arm, he came too, fitting perfectly against his father's side. The three of them sat there, Josephine crying happy tears beside them, and for the first time in 7 years, something broken started to feel whole again. The next few weeks were an adjustment. Jeho moved into the Busan house temporarily, sleeping in a guest room while they figured out their new normal. The twins adapted with the resilience of children, though they had moments of confusion and questions. Do we have to call you Appa? Gabriel asked one morning over breakfast. Or can we still say Juicy sometimes? You can call me whatever feels right, Jeho assured him. There's no rush. I like Appa, Samuel announced through a mouthful of rice. It makes us sound like a real family. We are a real family, Josephine said firmly. We always were, and we always will be. Jeho enrolled them in a good school in Busan, paid off Josephine's debts, and set up trust fund for the boys' education. Josephine protested at first, insisting she didn't need his money, but he reminded her that it wasn't about need, it was about partnership. Let me do this, he said one night after the boys were asleep. Let me take care of you all, not because you can't do it yourself, but because you shouldn't have to do it alone anymore. They were sitting on the balcony again, the ocean eternal below them. Josephine had relaxed over the weeks, the constant tension leaving her shoulders. She looked younger, happier. What about your life and soul? She asked. Your businesses, your apartment, everything you built there? I can run the businesses from anywhere. And that apartment was never a home. It was just a place I slept. He looked at her in the moonlight. This is home. Here with them. With you. Jeho. Josephine's voice held a warning. Don't confuse co-parenting with romance. We're different people now than we were 7 years ago. I know, and I'm not asking you to love me again. I'm just saying that I never stopped loving you. He held up a hand when she started to protest. I'm not expecting anything. I'm not pressuring you. I just wanted you to know. You deserve to know that you're not just the mother of my children. You're the woman who made me want to be better. And even if all we ever are is friends raising our sons together, that's enough for me. Josephine was quiet for a long time. You really have changed, she finally said. The old Jeho would never have been this patient, this humble. The old Jeho was an idiot who thought power and control were the same as strength. He smiled ruefully. Turns out real strength is admitting when you're wrong and trying to be better. And if I said I needed more time, that I'm not ready to even think about us as anything other than co-parents, then I'd say take all the time you need. I've got nothing but time now. 3 months passed in a blur of school runs, beach days, and the comfortable chaos of family life. Jeho learned to braid hair, badly, make Samuel's favorite kimchi fried rice, and help Gabriel with his math homework. He attended parent-teacher conferences and soccer games. He became simply Appa. One evening, he found Josephine in the kitchen, and she was humming while she cooked, the same song she used to hum 7 years ago. Without thinking, he came up behind her and wrapped his arms around her waist. She stiffened for a moment, then relaxed back against him. "The boys are asleep," she said softly. "I know. I just tucked them in. Samuel called you best Appa in the world today." "Yeah." Jeho smiled against her hair. "What did Gabriel say?" "He said you're pretty good for a beginner." They both laughed. "Jeho, I've been thinking." Dangerous words. She turned in his arms to face him. "I've been thinking that maybe we deserve a second chance. Not because of the boys, not because it's convenient, but because I never stopped loving you either. I tried. God knows I tried. But seeing you with them, seeing the man you become, it's hard not to fall all over again." Jeho's heart stopped. "Are you sure?" "Because Josephine, if we do this, I'm all in. No half measures, no backing out when things get hard. I want forever with you." "Forever is a long time." "Not long enough," he said, and then he kissed her. It was different from their kisses 7 years ago, less desperate, more certain. It tasted like second chances and redemption and coming home after a long journey. When they pulled apart, Josephine was smiling through tears. "We're really doing this? Becoming a family for real? We already are a family. Now we're just making it official." 6 months later, they had a small wedding on the beach in Busan. The twins were ring bearers, dressed in matching suits they'd picked out themselves. Han-soo was the best man, giving a surprisingly touching speech about second chances and the redemptive power of love. Even Choi Jin-ho attended, gifting them a ridiculously expensive painting that was probably stolen. Minji sent a card with a generous gift certificate and a note that said simply, "Be happy. You all deserve it." As the sun set over the ocean and Jeho danced with his new wife while their sons played in the sand, he marveled at how life could change. A year ago, he had been planning a different wedding, living a different life. Now he had everything he never knew he needed. "Appa," Samuel called out, "come build a sandcastle with us." "In a minute," Jeho called back, but Josephine laughed and pushed him toward the boys. "Go. Your sons are calling." Your sons. The word still made his heart skip a beat. He ran to join Samuel and Gabriel, who immediately put him to work digging a moat. As he scooped sand with his bare hands, his son's laughter surrounding him and his wife watching with love in her eyes, Jeho sent up a silent prayer of gratitude for the moment he saw them in that crosswalk, for the courage to fight for them, for the second chance he never thought he'd get. "Appa, you're doing it wrong," Gabriel criticized, but he was smiling. "Show me how then," Jeho said, and his son, his brilliant, serious, perfect son, demonstrated the proper moat-digging technique with the patience of a teacher. Later, as the wedding party wound down and the boys fell asleep on the beach blankets, Jeho carried Samuel, while Josephine carried Gabriel back to their home. Their home, not his penthouse or her tiny apartment, but the place they'd built together, filled with laughter and love and the beautiful mess of family. "Nori grits?" Josephine asked as they tucked the boys into bed. "Not a single one," Jeho said, kissing first Samuel's forehead, then Gabriel's. "This is everything." And it was. The billionaire mafia boss had found something more valuable than power, more precious than money. He had found his way home. If you made it this far, you are an absolute legend. Do me the biggest favor and subscribe to this channel right now. Hit that notification bell so you never miss another incredible story like this one. Drop a comment telling me what your favorite part was. Did you tear up? Did you root for Jaeho? Let me know. Share this video with someone who loves epic romance stories. And don't forget to check out our other videos for more amazing content. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next story. Until then, remember, it's never too late for a second chance at love. Peace out.